I'm Genevieve, 29 years old, and I never imagined I'd be telling this story. My high-risk pregnancy was already challenging enough when my husband Marcus decided our plan to stay near the hospital wasn't important. As contractions started that morning, he made his choice, leaving me gasping in pain while he drove off with his parents. The joke he tossed back still echoes in my mind. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe so you don't miss how this shocking betrayal ultimately transformed my life. I met Marcus 4 years ago at a charity gala in Boston. I was working as a marketing executive for a nonprofit organization completely focused on building my career. With my blonde hair pulled back in a professional bun and wearing a simple black dress that night, I wasn't looking to meet anyone. But Marcus appeared beside me during the silent auction, charming me with intelligent conversation about the artwork and making me laugh harder than I had in months. "You have the most beautiful smile," he said, his dark eyes seemingly memorizing every detail of my face. "I'd like to see it more often." Something about his confidence and warmth made me feel instantly comfortable. He was tall, with broad shoulders, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, and when he spoke, everyone around seemed to naturally listen. By the end of the evening, we'd exchanged numbers, and he called the very next day. Our relationship progressed quickly. Marcus was attentive, sending flowers to my office, remembering small details about my preferences, and planning thoughtful dates. Within 6 months, we were practically inseparable. His background in finance complemented my creative career, and we seemed to balance each other perfectly. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," he would say, holding my hand across restaurant tables. "I've never felt this way about anyone before." Looking back now, I should have noticed the red flags when he first introduced me to his parents, Thomas and Eleanor. They lived about an hour outside of Boston, in a sprawling colonial home where Marcus had grown up as their only child. From the moment I walked in, Eleanor scrutinized everything from my clothing to my table manners. "Marcus always said he would marry someone with a more traditional background," she commented during that first dinner, eyeing my career with thinly veiled disapproval. Thomas was more subtle but equally dismissive, questioning my family history and education as if conducting an interview. Throughout the evening, Marcus never once defended me, instead agreeing with his parents or changing the subject. "They just want what's best for me," he explained on the drive home. "They'll warm up to you once they get to know you better." After dating for a year, Marcus proposed during a weekend trip to Cape Cod. It was sunset on the beach, picture perfect, with the ring his grandmother had worn. In that moment of joy, I pushed aside the nagging concerns about his relationship with his parents. Surely marriage would shift his primary loyalty to our new family unit. The wedding planning quickly became a battleground. Eleanor insisted on controlling every detail from the venue to the floral arrangements, dismissing my preferences as trendy or inappropriate. When I selected a sleek modern dress, she brought traditional gowns to every fitting until I relented to avoid constant conflict. "My mother has planned society weddings for years," Marcus reasoned. "She knows what she's doing. Can't you just trust her vision?" The pattern continued after we were married. When we purchased our first home, his parents helped by selecting a house just 20 minutes from theirs, instead of in the city neighborhood we had originally discussed. When I accepted a promotion that required occasional travel, Thomas questioned my commitment to building a family. Every holiday, every weekend, every decision somehow involved consulting or visiting his parents. "They're my family," Marcus would say whenever I expressed frustration. "You're asking me to choose between you and them, and that's not fair." 2 years into our marriage, we began trying for a baby. After months without success, medical tests revealed I had a condition that made conception difficult. The treatments were expensive and emotionally draining, but Marcus initially seemed supportive, holding my hand during appointments and administering hormone injections when I couldn't reach the right angle. When I finally saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, we both cried with joy. For a few blissful weeks, Marcus seemed fully committed to our growing family. He attended the first ultrasound, his eyes wide with wonder as we heard the rapid heartbeat filling the examination room. "That's our baby," he whispered, squeezing my hand. "We're going to be parents." But as my body changed, Marcus became increasingly distant. The morning sickness that lasted well into my second trimester meant I was too ill for regular visits to his parents' house, which created tension. Eleanor began sending articles about natural remedies for pregnancy symptoms, implying I wasn't trying hard enough to stay well. My friends' daughters all managed to work full-time and visit family throughout their pregnancies, she commented during one of her unexpected drop-ins. Perhaps you're being a bit dramatic about the nausea. At 20 weeks, we learned we were having a girl. While I was thrilled, I noticed Marcus seemed slightly disappointed. Later that evening, Thomas made a comment about carrying on the family name, and Marcus nodded in agreement. "Maybe the next one will be a boy," he said, patting my shoulder as if consoling me, though I was perfectly happy about our daughter. Then came the complications. My blood pressure began rising to concerning levels, and at 28 weeks my doctor diagnosed me with preeclampsia. I was put on modified bed rest and told to monitor my symptoms carefully. The specialist was clear this was now considered a high-risk pregnancy. "You need to minimize stress," Dr. Patterson emphasized, looking directly at Marcus. "No long trips, stay close to the hospital, and come in immediately if she experiences severe headaches, vision changes, or increased swelling." Rather than taking these warnings seriously, Marcus and his parents seemed to view my condition as an inconvenience to their plans. Eleanor suggested I simply needed to stay positive and exercise more directly, contradicting medical advice. When I developed severe swelling in my legs and feet, making it difficult to walk, Thomas commented that his mother had worked in the fields until the day she gave birth. As my due date approached, Dr. Patterson became increasingly concerned about my blood pressure and scheduled additional monitoring twice weekly. "You're at 39 weeks now," she explained during my final scheduled appointment. "The baby is fully developed, but your blood pressure readings are concerning. I want you to have your hospital bag ready. Labor could start any day, and given your condition, things might progress quickly." I relayed this information to Marcus that evening as we prepared for bed. His response was unexpected. "Oh, that reminds me. Mom and Dad called earlier. They're planning a weekend trip to the lake house and want us to join them." I stared at him in disbelief. "Marcus, did you hear anything I just said? Dr. Patterson thinks I could go into labor any day now. We need to stay close to the hospital." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's their anniversary weekend. The lake house is only 3 hours away. If anything happens, we can always drive back." That night, we had our worst argument of the marriage. I tried explaining the risks, the warnings from multiple doctors, the potential danger to our baby. Marcus accused me of being paranoid and trying to come between him and his parents on their special weekend. "They're getting older, Genevieve. How many more anniversaries will they have? Are you really asking me to disappoint them because of what might happen?" I went to bed in tears while Marcus slept in the guest room. The next morning would change everything between us forever. I woke up at 5:30 with a sharp pain radiating across my lower back. Breathing through it, I slowly made my way to the bathroom, noticing a pinkish discharge when I used the toilet. Another contraction hit 15 minutes later as I was making tea in the kitchen. Marcus emerged from the guest room at 7, already dressed in casual weekend clothes, acting as if our argument had never happened. He was packing a cooler with snacks for the trip when I felt another contraction stronger than the previous ones. "Marcus," I said, gripping the kitchen counter, "I think I'm having contractions. They're about 15 minutes apart." He barely looked up. "It's probably just false labor. The doctor said first babies are usually late, remember. But my blood pressure, the complications." I began before he cut me off. "Look, my parents are expecting us. We can't just cancel at the last minute. If you're really worried, we can stop by the hospital on the way to check, but I'm sure everything's fine." Feeling uncertain and wanting to avoid another fight, I reluctantly finished packing my overnight bag, making sure to include my hospital documents just in case. I added extra maternity pads and a change of clothes, thinking we really would stop at the hospital first. When we got into the car, Marcus immediately turned north toward his parents' lake house instead of east toward the hospital. Another contraction hit, and I breathed through it, trying to time the intervals on my phone. "They're getting closer together," I said, showing him the app. 13 minutes now." "First-time mothers are in labor for hours," he replied dismissively. "We have plenty of time." His phone rang through the car speakers. "Marcus, darling, where are you two?" Eleanor's voice filled the car. We're already on the road and should arrive by noon. The catering service needs a final head count. We're on our way, Mom, he answered. Should be there a little after you. 3 more calls came within the hour, all from his parents asking about arrival times and weekend plans. Meanwhile, my contractions continued strengthening, now 10 minutes apart and lasting longer. Marcus, please, I begged as pain radiated through my abdomen. This isn't false labor. The baby is coming. We need to turn around now. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Can you stop being dramatic for one weekend? This is important to my parents. And giving birth is important to me, I shouted, then gasped as another contraction hit. My obvious distress finally seemed to register with him, and he pulled into a gas station just off the highway. For a moment I felt relief, thinking he had come to his senses. He parked near the convenience store and turned to me. Look, this clearly isn't going to work, he said, his tone unnervingly calm. I need to be there for my parents' anniversary. They're expecting me. Before I could respond, he got out, walked around to my side, and opened my door. Can you slide over to the driver's seat? He asked. Confused, I stared at him. What? Why? I'll take my car and continue to my parents. You can take your car and drive yourself to the hospital if you really think you need to go. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Marcus, I'm having contractions. I can't drive myself. His expression hardened. You can drive yourself to the hospital, right? I'll just catch up with you later. With that, he helped me awkwardly shuffle across to the driver's seat, placed my purse and keys in my lap, and closed the door. Through the window, I watched in shock as he walked to where his parents had pulled up in their luxury SUV, climbed into the back seat, and drove away without looking back. As they disappeared from view, another contraction hit stronger than any before leaving me, gasping and alone. The reality of my situation crashed over me like a wave. There I sat, 9 months pregnant in active labor, abandoned at a rural gas station by my husband of 3 years. The digital clock on the dashboard read 9:47 a.m. as another contraction gripped my body, this one lasting nearly a minute. This can't be happening, I whispered to myself, tears streaming down my face as I fumbled for my phone. My hands shook so badly I could barely unlock the screen. I called Marcus first, the call going straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times with the same result, then tried his parents' phones. No answer there either. Between contractions, I managed to open my rideshare app, only to receive an error message, "No drivers available in your area." The gas station was located in a rural stretch between towns at least 20 minutes from the nearest hospital. I tried to calm my breathing and think rationally. Could I drive myself? I turned the key in the ignition, but another powerful contraction hit immediately, causing me to double over against the steering wheel, accidentally honking the horn. The sound must have alerted someone because moments later, a middle-aged man in a gas station uniform tapped on my window. His name tag read Steve. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked when I managed to lower the window. "I'm in labor," I gasped. "My husband just left me here. I need to get to a hospital." Steve's eyes widened. "Left you, Jesus Christ. Hold on, let me see if there's anyone who can help." He hurried back into the station while I focused on my breathing techniques from childbirth class, trying to manage the increasing pain. The contractions were now 7 minutes apart and growing more intense. Through the haze of pain and fear, I noticed an elderly couple approach my car. The woman with soft silver hair and kind eyes leaned down to my window level. "Honey, the attendant says you need help getting to the hospital." Her voice carried a slight southern accent. I nodded, unable to speak, as another contraction began building. "I'm Martha, and this is my husband, Jim," she continued. "We're heading back to Springfield. There's a good hospital there. We can take you." Jim, tall and lean, with a weathered face that spoke of years outdoors, nodded firmly. "No young woman should be alone at a time like this. Our car's right over there." Between contractions, Martha and Steve helped me from my car to the couple's comfortable sedan. I worried about leaving my vehicle behind, but Steve assured me it would be safe in his employee parking spot until arrangements could be made. "I'll leave your keys at the desk with my number," he said, helping Martha settle me into the back seat. "Just call when you can. Don't worry about the car now." As we pulled away, another wave of pain crashed over me. Martha climbed into the back seat beside me, offering her hand. "Squeeze as hard as you need to, dear," she said, as I gripped her fingers through the contraction. "Jim drove like a bat out of hell when I was in labor with our son, and that was 47 years ago." Jim met my eyes in the rearview mirror. "I'm not as fast now, but I promise we'll get you there safely. Hospital's about 30 minutes away." Despite being complete strangers, Martha and Jim created a cocoon of safety around me. Martha kept track of my contractions on her ancient flip phone, while Jim told stories about their grandchildren to distract me from the pain. "Our Jenny just had her second last year," Martha said, dabbing my forehead with her handkerchief. "So I remember what this is like. You're doing beautifully." 20 minutes into the drive, I felt a sudden gush of warm fluid between my legs. "My water just broke," I said, mortified at soaking their clean car seats. "Don't you worry about that for a second," Martha assured me while Jim pressed harder on the accelerator. When we finally arrived at Springfield Memorial Hospital, Jim pulled directly up to the emergency entrance and ran inside. Within moments, he returned with a nurse and an orderly pushing a wheelchair. 39 weeks preeclampsia contractions about 5 minutes apart, water broke 20 minutes ago, Martha informed them efficiently as they helped me from the car. The nurse, whose name badge read Tanya, looked at me with concern. "Is your husband on his way?" Fresh tears sprang to my eyes. "He left me at a gas station to go to his parents' anniversary." Tanya's professional expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened slightly. "All right, let's focus on you and this baby right now. We've got you." As the orderly began wheeling me inside, I turned back to Jim and Martha. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you. Just send us a picture of that beautiful baby," Martha replied, squeezing my hand one last time. "We'll wait a while," Jim added. "Make sure you're settled before we head home." Inside the hospital, machinery sprang into action. I was quickly registered, assessed, and moved to a labor and delivery room. My blood pressure was dangerously high, causing the attending physician, Dr. Rivera, to look concerned. "We need to monitor you and the baby very closely," she explained, attaching various sensors to my abdomen. "The preeclampsia combined with the stress you've experienced puts you both at risk." Between examinations and monitoring, I continued trying to reach Marcus. Each call went unanswered as the hours ticked by. The nurses, perhaps sensing my distress, were exceptionally attentive, explaining each procedure and offering constant reassurance. "Is there anyone else we can call for you?" asked the labor and delivery nurse Diane. "My parents are in Arizona," I explained through tears. "They couldn't travel for my baby shower last month because my dad was recovering from surgery." Diane nodded understanding. "Would you like me to call them? They should know what's happening." While I focused on breathing through contractions, Diane used the room phone to contact my parents. I could hear her professional voice explaining the situation, carefully, avoiding placing blame, while making it clear I was alone. An hour later, while being examined again, I was surprised when Diane mentioned that Jim and Martha were still in the waiting room. "The older couple that brought you in, they said they'll stay until your family arrives. I offered to update them on your progress if that's okay with you." I nodded, oddly comforted that these strangers cared enough to remain. By early afternoon, my labor had progressed rapidly. Dr. Rivera checked the monitors and frowned. "The baby's heart rate is showing some concerning patterns," she explained, "and your blood pressure isn't stabilizing despite medication. I think we need to consider an emergency C-section." A wave of terror washed over me. "I can't do this alone," I whispered. Diane took my hand firmly. "You are not alone. We're all here with you. This is about getting your baby here safely now." While the surgical team prepared, I was given forms to sign. My hand trembled as I authorized the procedure, the weight of making this life-altering decision without family support almost overwhelming. As they wheeled me toward the operating room, I caught a glimpse of Jim and Martha in the waiting area. Martha raised her hand in encouragement, and somehow that simple gesture gave me strength. "My husband should be here," I said to no one in particular, as the anesthesiologist prepared the spinal block. "But he isn't," Dr. Rivera replied, her voice gentle but direct. "And you're handling this with incredible courage. Now let's meet your daughter." The operating room was bright and cold. I felt pressure but no pain, as the team worked efficiently behind the blue drape separating me from the surgery. The anesthesiologist stayed by my head, describing what was happening in calming tones. "Almost there," Dr. Rivera announced. "Lots of pressure now." Then came the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard, a strong, angry cry filling the room. "She's here," someone announced. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect lungs. The team briefly showed me my daughter's red, scrunched face before taking her for assessment. Tears streamed down my temples into my hair as I realized I was a mother now, forever changed by this tiny person I'd just met. After being stitched and moved to recovery, I finally held my daughter in my arms. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine as she blinked up at me with unfocused, dark blue eyes. "Hello, Emma," I whispered the name we'd chosen months ago. "It's just you and me for now, but we'll be okay." 3 hours after Emma's birth, as I dozed in the recovery room with her in the bassinet beside me, my phone rang. The screen showed Marcus's name, the first response after countless calls and texts throughout the day. "Hello," I answered, my voice hoarse from the day's exertion. "Genevieve, thank God I just saw all your messages." Marcus sounded panicked. "Are you at the hospital? Is the baby okay?" The casual way he asked, as if checking whether I'd picked up dry cleaning, ignited something deep inside me. "Yes, Marcus. I'm at Springfield Memorial. Our daughter was born by emergency C-section 3 hours ago." There was a pause. "Springfield. How did you get all the way there?" "A kind elderly couple gave me a ride after you abandoned me at a gas station while I was in active labor," I replied flatly. "I didn't abandon you," he protested. "I thought you were exaggerating. How was I supposed to know it was real labor?" In the background, I could hear Eleanor's voice. "Is she saying the baby came early? That's very inconsiderate timing." Something inside me snapped. After hours of fear, pain, and facing major surgery alone, hearing my mother-in-law critique my timing was the final straw. "Marcus, I can't do this right now. I've just had major surgery. Your daughter and I are both healthy, no thanks to you. The nurses have documented everything, including your decision to leave me at a gas station." "Now wait a minute," he began, his tone defensive. "There's no need to involve other people in our private business. I'm sorry about the reception out here. We barely got your messages." I ended the call mid-sentence, too exhausted to argue. Moments later, Diane entered to check my vitals. "Your husband?" she asked, nodding toward the phone. "Yes." She made a note in my chart. "Just so you know, we've documented the circumstances of your arrival as part of your medical record. Standard procedure when a patient arrives in labor without support." I nodded gratefully, understanding the subtext. They were creating a paper trail of abandonment without my having to ask. Later that evening, Jim and Martha were allowed a brief visit. Martha had somehow acquired a tiny yellow hat, which she placed gently on Emma's head. "We called our daughter," Jim explained. "She's sending over some newborn essentials. Figured you might not have everything since this happened so suddenly." "Why are you doing this for me?" I asked, overwhelmed by their kindness. Martha smoothed Emma's blanket. 40 years ago, I had a medical emergency while Jim was away on business. A stranger helped me when I needed it most. We're just paying it forward." As they left, promising to check on me tomorrow, I looked down at my sleeping daughter and made a silent vow Emma would grow up knowing what true support looked like, even if it came from unexpected sources. I woke the next morning to a text from Marcus. "On our way. Should arrive by noon. Mom and Dad coming too." The hospital routine continued around me, staff checking vitals, helping with first feedings, and teaching me how to care for my incision. Emma was declared perfectly healthy despite the traumatic circumstances of her birth, her APGAR scores excellent. Around 11, a hospital social worker named Leanne knocked on my door. "The nurses mentioned your unusual arrival circumstances," she said after introducing herself. "I'd like to offer some resources and support." Leanne explained various postpartum services available, but also gently mentioned legal protections. "What happened yesterday could be considered endangerment of both you and your baby. I'm not suggesting any particular course of action, but I want you to know that the hospital has documented everything in detail." She left her card and several pamphlets before adding, "Sometimes in these situations, family dynamics can become complicated. If you need to restrict visitors at any point, just tell your nurse." Shortly after noon, Marcus arrived carrying an enormous teddy bear and a bouquet of roses. His parents followed Eleanor clutching a designer diaper bag and Thomas filming everything on his phone. "There's my girls," Marcus announced, as if making a grand entrance to applause. He leaned down to kiss me, but I turned my face slightly, his lips landing on my cheek instead. If he noticed my coldness, he didn't acknowledge it. Eleanor immediately began examining Emma, her acrylic nails clicking as she adjusted the hospital blanket. "She has the Wilson family nose, thank goodness. Is that hospital-provided clothing? We brought proper outfits." Thomas continued filming. "Our first grandchild born on our anniversary weekend. Almost like she knew." The casual way they referenced their anniversary weekend, without a hint of remorse about what had transpired, made my blood pressure monitor beep in warning. A nurse named Rachel appeared instantly. "I need everyone to step back, please. Mrs. Wilson needs to remain calm." "We're family," Eleanor protested, still holding the edge of Emma's blanket. Rachel was firm. "The patient's blood pressure is elevated. I need to check her and the baby now." The monitoring provided a brief respite as Marcus and his parents stepped into the hallway. Rachel checked my incision and Emma's vitals before asking quietly, "Are you comfortable with these visitors? You don't have to see anyone you don't want to." "They can stay for now," I replied. "But thank you." When they returned, Marcus had apparently been briefed by the nurse to be more considerate. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed, actually looking at me properly for the first time. "You look tired," he observed, which was perhaps the understatement of the year. "Giving birth alone will do that," I replied quietly. Eleanor interjected before Marcus could respond. "Well, these things happen. The important thing is everyone's healthy. Now we've already prepared the nursery at our house for when you're discharged. Mom will take over while you recover." The presumption that I would be staying at their house, that Mom would take over my newborn, sparked something primal within me. But before I could respond, Thomas announced they were going to get the house ready and would return later. As soon as his parents left to check into their hotel, Marcus's demeanor changed slightly. He set down the teddy bear and ran his hands through his hair. "Look, I know yesterday didn't go as planned," he began. "As planned. Nothing was planned about being abandoned at a gas station while in labor." Marcus sighed. "You're being dramatic. I didn't abandon you. I left you with your car. While I was having contractions, after doctors specifically warned us to stay near the hospital." "How was I supposed to know it was real labor?" he countered. "First babies are usually late." I stared at him, truly seeing him perhaps for the first time. "Marcus, do you actually hear yourself? I was having contractions. I told you I was in labor. I begged you to take me to the hospital. Instead, you left me alone so you could attend a party." "It wasn't just a party. It was my parents' anniversary. And this wasn't just discomfort. It was the birth of your child." He stood up, pacing the small room. "Well, everything turned out fine, didn't it? The baby's healthy. You're fine." "No thanks to you," I said quietly. "Do you have any idea what happened after you left? How terrified I was. I had an emergency C-section. Marcus, I could have died. Emma could have died." His expression finally showed a flicker of concern. "The doctors didn't tell me it was that serious." "Because you weren't here." A tense silence filled the room. Finally, I spoke the words forming in my heart. "I need you to leave." "What?" "I need you to leave. I can't look at you right now without remembering being abandoned when I needed you most." Marcus's face flushed with anger. "You can't keep me from my daughter. I have rights." "I'm not keeping you from Emma. I'm asking for space while I recover from major surgery and process what happened." "You're embarrassing me," he hissed. "The nurses are talking. My parents will be back soon. How do I explain that my wife kicked me out? The same way you explain leaving your laboring wife at a gas station, I suppose." His voice rose. "This is ridiculous. I'm her father." "And where were you when she was being born?" I shot back, my own voice rising despite my exhaustion. The commotion brought Rachel back into the room. "Is everything all right?" "My husband was just leaving," I said firmly. Marcus looked between us, clearly realizing he was outnumbered. "This isn't over," he warned before storming out. Rachel checked my blood pressure again. "Would you like me to alert security to restrict his visits?" I nodded, tears finally breaking free. I can't believe this is happening. You're not the first new mom we've seen dealing with a difficult situation, Rachel assured me, adjusting Emma's blanket. But from what I've seen, you're already a fierce advocate for your daughter. That's what matters most right now. Later that evening, while attempting to rest, I received a video call from my parents. Their worried faces appeared on screen, my mother's eyes red from crying. "Jenny, honey, are you really okay?" Mom asked, using my childhood nickname. I turned the camera to show them Emma sleeping peacefully. "We're both okay, physically at least." Dad's voice was tight with restrained anger. "We've booked flights. We arrive tomorrow afternoon." "You don't have to," I began. "Yes, we do," Mom interrupted firmly. "Your father is well enough to travel now, and nothing could keep us away. The neighbor is watching the house, and we've packed for an extended stay." For the first time since labor began, I felt truly supported. "Thank you." "Have you spoken with an attorney?" Dad asked, always practical. "A social worker came by with some resources. I haven't made any decisions yet." Mom leaned closer to the camera. "Whatever you decide, we're behind you 100%. Just focus on healing and taking care of our granddaughter. We'll handle everything else when we get there." After ending the call, I lay in the darkened hospital room, watching Emma breathe each tiny inhalation, reinforcing my resolve. Whatever happened next, her well-being would guide every decision. The next morning brought a cascade of text messages from Marcus, alternating between apologies and accusations. His parents had apparently spent the night calling mutual friends, spinning a story about me being hormonal and overreacting to a simple misunderstanding. Around 10, a hospital administrator arrived with security to explain that Marcus was demanding access to see Emma. "As her father, he does have rights," the administrator explained gently. "But given the circumstances, we can arrange supervised visits in the nursery if you prefer not to see him." I agreed to this arrangement, wanting to establish boundaries without preventing Emma from bonding with her father. Whatever issues existed between Marcus and me, Emma deserved relationships with both parents if possible. That afternoon, my parents arrived looking exhausted but determined. Mom immediately took charge, coordinating with nurses and arranging for my discharge the following day to their hotel suite rather than to my home or my in-laws' house. While Mom organized, Dad stepped into the hallway with his phone. He returned 20 minutes later, sitting carefully in the visitor chair. "I've spoken with Patricia Reeves. She's a family law attorney I know from my banking days. She can meet us at the hotel tomorrow to discuss your options." "Dad, I don't know if I'm ready to—" "Just a consultation," he assured me. "No decisions needed yet, but information is power, Jenny." When my parents finally met Emma, the joy on their faces momentarily eclipsed the circumstances. Mom counted fingers and toes, as if doing inventory, while Dad simply stared in wonder at his granddaughter. "She looks just like you did," Mom whispered. "Same determined little chin." The next day brought my hospital discharge, a complicated process made more tense by Marcus's arrival, just as we were preparing to leave. He stood in the doorway watching as Mom helped me into a wheelchair while Dad filled out paperwork. "So this is how it's going to be?" Marcus asked, his tone bitter. "Your parents taking over. This is how it has to be right now." I replied, too exhausted for another confrontation. "I need to recover somewhere peaceful." "Our home is peaceful," he protested. Dad stepped between us. "Marcus, now isn't the time. Genevieve needs rest and support. We can arrange for you to visit Emma at the hotel tomorrow." "I have rights," Marcus began, but a security officer appeared behind him, a silent reminder of the boundaries that had been established. "We'll call you with the room number," I offered as a compromise, unwilling to engage in a power struggle with Emma in my arms. The next week passed in a blur of newborn care, physical recovery, and emotional processing. From the relative safety of the hotel suite, I began untangling the complex emotions surrounding Emma's birth and my marriage. Marcus visited Emma daily, his demeanor oscillating between contrite father and aggrieved husband. His parents called repeatedly, leaving increasingly threatening voicemails about family obligations and legal recourse. 9 days after Emma's birth, I met with Patricia Reeves in a private conference room at the hotel. She listened without interruption as I recounted the events leading to Emma's birth, occasionally making notes. "What you're describing is abandonment during a medical emergency," she stated plainly when I finished. "The hospital records corroborate your account, and the witnesses who transported you would be compelling testimony if needed." "I don't know if I want a divorce," I admitted, the word still shocking to say aloud. Patricia nodded understanding. "Many new mothers in difficult situations prefer to wait before making permanent decisions. We can file for temporary custody and support while you decide." "Would I have to return home?" "Absolutely not. In fact, I would advise against it until we have temporary orders in place." Later that day, Marcus arrived for his usual visit with Emma, but asked to speak with me privately first. In the small kitchenette of the suite, while my parents watched Emma in the living area, he finally seemed to grasp the seriousness of our situation. "My father says you've hired a divorce attorney," he began without preamble. "I've consulted with a family law attorney to understand my options," I clarified. Marcus paced the small space. "This has gone far enough, Genevieve. You've made your point. It's time to come home and be a family." "I'm not trying to make a point. I'm protecting myself and Emma while I decide what happens next." "What's there to decide? We had a fight, I made a mistake, but now we move forward." I leaned against the counter for support, my incision still tender. "You didn't just make a mistake, Marcus. You chose your parents over your wife and child in a life-threatening situation. That goes beyond a simple fight." For the first time, genuine remorse crossed his features. "I never thought you were really in danger. I never thought—" "That's the problem," I interrupted gently. "You never thought about us at all." We stood in silence for several moments before I continued. "I need time, Marcus. This isn't a punishment. It's about figuring out what's best for Emma going forward. And if I give you time, if I respect your boundaries, will you consider coming home eventually?" I couldn't offer false hope. "I don't know, but treating me with respect now is the only chance we have." The conversation marked a turning point. While Marcus clearly didn't fully understand the depth of the breach, he began making efforts to demonstrate responsibility. He attended a parenting class at the hospital. He arrived for visits with Emma prepared and attentive. He even sent a handwritten apology. His parents, however, escalated their campaign. Eleanor left a voicemail threatening to sue for grandparent visitation rights. Thomas contacted mutual friends spreading misinformation about my mental state. Their actions only confirmed the toxic patterns I'd experienced throughout my marriage. 3 weeks after Emma's birth, we attended a preliminary custody hearing. The judge, a stern woman with decades of family court experience, reviewed the hospital records and witness statements before addressing Marcus directly. "Mr. Wilson, the court takes a very dim view of abandoning a spouse during medical emergency, particularly one involving childbirth. Your subsequent behavior suggests a disturbing lack of judgment regarding your wife and child's well-being." Marcus's attorney attempted to characterize the incident as a misunderstanding between first-time parents, but the judge wasn't persuaded. "The temporary orders will grant primary physical custody to Mrs. Wilson with supervised visitation for Mr. Wilson 3 times weekly. Child support will commence immediately. The court further orders Mr. Wilson to complete parenting classes and counseling before the final determination." Outside the courtroom, Marcus approached me looking shell-shocked. "I never thought it would come to this." "Neither did I admitted, adjusting Emma in her carrier. Something in my tone must have finally reached him, because his expression changed from defensive to genuinely regretful. "I really messed up, didn't I?" "Yes, you did. What happens now?" I looked at my daughter, peaceful, despite the chaos surrounding her entry into the world. "Now we both focus on what's best for Emma. Everything else is secondary." In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. Without his parents' constant influence, Marcus began showing glimmers of the man I'd originally fallen in love with. He arrived for visitations prepared and engaged. He asked questions about Emma's care and actually listened to the answers. He even stood up to his mother when she criticized my breastfeeding choices during a video call he received during his visitation. Meanwhile, with my parents' support, I secured a small apartment near the hospital where I delivered. The property manager, upon hearing a simplified version of my situation, expedited the application and waived several fees. My sister went through something similar, she explained, handing me the keys. Having your own safe space makes all the difference. My marketing firm offered me extended leave and the option to transition to remote work, providing financial stability during the separation. Friends who had distanced themselves after hearing Marcus's parents' version of events began reaching out again as the truth circulated. Most surprisingly, Jim and Martha, the couple who had driven me to the hospital, became regular visitors. Martha brought home cooked meals and grandmotherly advice, while Jim assembled furniture and installed baby-proofing with quiet efficiency. "You've become honorary grandparents," I told them one evening as Martha rocked Emma. "Best promotion we've ever received," Jim replied with a wink. The day I moved into my apartment marked another milestone. For the first time since Emma's birth, I would be truly on my own with her, responsible for every aspect of her care without my parents' safety net. After my father assembled the crib and my mother stocked the refrigerator with prepared meals, they reluctantly prepared to return to Arizona. "Are you sure you'll be all right?" Mom asked for the dozenth time, straightening already perfectly aligned baby clothes. "We're ready," I assured her, surprising myself with the confidence in my voice. "And you're just a phone call away." That first night alone with Emma after my parents had gone, I felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. As I fed her in the rocking chair beside the window, watching twilight settle over the unfamiliar neighborhood, I realized I was no longer afraid. "It's just us now, Emma," I whispered to my drowsy daughter. "And somehow, we're going to be okay." 1 year later, as I prepared for Emma's first birthday party, I could hardly believe the transformation in our lives. The small apartment had become a true home, filled with Emma's developmental toys, framed photos of our emerging little family, and the comfortable, practical furniture I'd selected. After 6 months of supervised visitation parenting classes and consistent counseling, Marcus had earned unsupervised weekend visits with Emma. Our communication, once fraught with emotional landmines, had evolved into a practical co-parenting relationship focused on Emma's needs rather than our past grievances. The most significant change had been in Marcus himself. Away from his parents' constant influence, he'd begun developing genuine independence. He moved out of our marital home into an apartment suitable for Emma's visits, complete with a properly equipped nursery. His counseling sessions revealed patterns of emotional dependence that had shaped his behavior throughout our marriage. "I never realized how much their approval dictated my choices," he admitted during one of our parenting coordination meetings. "It doesn't excuse what happened, but I'm working to break those patterns." His parents remained a complicated presence. After their initial threats of grandparent rights litigation, Patricia had sent a cease and desist letter outlining the potential consequences of their harassment. While they still occasionally saw Emma during Marcus's visits, their access was limited and supervised by him. Professionally, I'd found unexpected fulfillment in the changes forced by circumstance. Working remotely for my marketing firm provided the flexibility motherhood required while allowing me to maintain financial independence. 3 months earlier, I'd launched a small side business, creating specialized marketing packages for women entrepreneurs' work that energized me in new ways. Jim and Martha had indeed become Emma's honorary grandparents, stopping by regularly with thoughtful gifts and practical assistance. They'd hosted Thanksgiving dinner for our unusual extended family, including my parents who flew in for the holiday. "Family is what you make it," Martha observed that evening, watching the unlikely gathering of people connected by their love for one small child. As I arranged cupcakes for Emma's birthday, the doorbell rang. Marcus arrived first, carrying a wrapped package and wearing the slightly anxious expression that still characterized our interactions. "The decorations look great," he offered, setting his gift on the designated table. "Thanks. Emma's been fascinated by the balloons all morning." Our daughter, hearing her father's voice, crawled rapidly from her play area, pulling herself up on his pant leg with a delighted squeal. The genuine joy on Marcus's face as he lifted her reminded me that despite everything, Emma would grow up knowing her father loved her. Throughout the afternoon, our carefully constructed new normal functioned smoothly. My parents chatted amicably with Marcus. Jim and Martha arrived with homemade ice cream. Even a few friends from our former social circle attended relationships I'd worked to rebuild over months of honesty and forgiveness. After the guests departed and Emma napped exhausted from the excitement, I sat on the balcony of our apartment, reflecting on the journey of the past year. The pain of betrayal had gradually transformed into something unexpected, gratitude for the strength I'd discovered within myself. The marriage I'd thought was perfect had been built on compromise and sacrifice, with my needs consistently subordinated to Marcus's family dynamics. While the manner of its ending had been traumatic, the freedom I'd found in its aftermath was transformative. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to recognize genuine support, and to set boundaries without guilt. Most importantly, I'd discovered that family could be chosen and created, not merely inherited or married into. My phone chimed with a text from Leanne, the hospital social worker who'd become a friend. "Thinking of birthday girl today. You've come so far. Proud of you." Her message triggered memories of those first terrifying days, the vulnerability and uncertainty that had seemed insurmountable. If I could somehow send a message back to myself in that hospital bed, it would be simple. Trust yourself. You are stronger than you know. Emma's first year had been nothing like the maternal experience I'd imagined, yet it had been profoundly meaningful. Each milestone, her first smile, first word, first steps, had been celebrated within our unconventional support system, proof that love and belonging aren't confined to traditional family structures. The journey from abandoned wife to confident single mother hadn't been linear. There had been nights of doubt and days of overwhelming responsibility. But through it all, Emma had thrived, secure in the knowledge she was deeply loved. Marcus and I would never return to being husband and wife, that bridge irrevocably burned in a gas station parking lot. But we were finding our way to becoming effective co-parents, our shared love for Emma, providing common ground for growth and healing. As for me, I discovered that surviving betrayal didn't have to make me bitter. Instead, it had clarified my values, strengthened my resolve, and opened unexpected pathways to joy. The woman who had once sought validation through marriage now understood her own worth independently. Emma woke from her nap, her birthday dress rumpled, and her hair sticking up endearingly. As I lifted her from the crib, she patted my face with sticky fingers, babbling happily about her day. "We did it, baby girl," I whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "One whole year of figuring things out together. And you know what? We're just getting started." In the quiet of our home, watching Emma play with her new toys, I finally recognized the truth that had been forming throughout our journey. Sometimes what appears to be abandonment is actually liberation in disguise. The moment I was left alone became the moment I began to truly find myself. That knowledge didn't erase the pain of betrayal or excuse Marcus's choices, but it allowed me to view our story not as a tragedy, but as a transformation. The abandonment that might have broken me instead revealed a strength I hadn't known I possessed, the same strength I now hope to nurture in my daughter. What began as a day of unimaginable betrayal had ultimately led to a life more authentic and fulfilling than I could have predicted. And for that unexpected gift, I could finally feel a measure of peace. Has something in your life ever fallen apart only to make way for something better? I'd love to hear your stories of finding strength in unexpected places. Please share in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life journeys. Thank you for walking this road with me today, and remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.